JDs and gentlemen, today's video we will be discussing the best 10 attacking footy players in the AFL for the last decade, 2013 to 2023. Now, attackers, I'm being strict on this. None of those mid-forward players. I want an out-and-out attacker. That can be a tall, that can be a small forward, all right? A mix of the two. And this list is based on a couple of things. First of all, statistics come into account, the eye test, looking at that player individually, in their prime, like how good were they in their prime in this period. Accolades won, Coleman's, premierships, things like that. All Australians as well. And the general influence they've had on their team in the last 10 years. So to caveat this, just because they played maybe, ended their career in 2013, 2014, I'm taking that as just 2 seasons in the last 10 years. So they probably won't make my top 10. So we're going from 10th to 1st. In 10th place, I have got Luke Bruce from the Hawthorn Football Club. The Hawks, obviously 13, 14, 15, they won the flags. He has got 3 flags to his name, pivotal in all of those. He's been great for Hawthorn since he's played for that team. I rate that guy so highly. He has, for the last 10 years, this has been his prime time. Early on in his career, obviously helping Hawthorn get that 3-peat, and then he's been helping develop the young Hawks even to this day. Consistent every year, top 10 Coleman. Him and Gunston always in the top 10 of that Coleman more or less, but especially Luke Bruce as a small forward, not a tall. Always kicking goals, the defensive forward pressure in a sense. He has to be in my top 10, but he's only 10th. There are 9 better for me. Now, before we actually keep going on, I'm going to be giving you my honourable mentions. Those who I think deserve a shout, but unfortunately didn't make it. First off, the man I just mentioned with Luke Bruce, Jack Gunston. Now, Gunston was my 11th, or maybe my 12th actually, but he was very unfortunate not to make it. To be honest, the reason being is sometimes he wasn't in that top 10 of the Coleman. Yes, he won those flags and everything. For the Hawks, he was a great player, but he just doesn't get into my top 10. Neither does Tex Walker. Now, I think Tex Walker was my 11th. He's really come into fruition the last sort of 5-6 years. However, 13, 14, 15, 16, maybe one good season out of those. And he's been up and down, that grand final year that Adelaide made in 2017, he was great. However, those seasons after, a bit questionable. He struggled because, he hasn't had much support for him throughout his career at Adelaide in the forward line. He's always been the main man. But unfortunately, on the eye test especially, and consistency-wise over 10 years, he just doesn't make it. Nick Rewalt doesn't make it. He retired in 2017. And you know what? As a forward, he did drop off for those last sort of 3-4 years. So he's unfortunate, but he's a good shout. Toby Green, unfortunate not to make it. I think because of his, dual position, midfield forward. He was heavily, I really had to think hard because the top 10 the last decade's hard because you have to account for the players who have already retired but have played some of their career for the last 10 years and players who are currently playing. Toby Green, he burst onto the scene for the GWS Giants back in 2014, 15. However, I just don't think he's good enough to get into this list. His prime is amazing, but in terms of body of work, not there. Body of work as well, Charlie Cameron in his prime could make this list. However, unfortunately, no flag for him and just not quite good enough. As is Ben Brown. Ben Brown had those sort of 3 years where he was finishing top 2, top 3 of the Coleman. Apart from that, he's done nothing, but decent shout. Now, on to 9th place. I have gone with flag-winning Jeremy Cameron from the Geelong Football Club. Now, out of my whole list, he is the youngest, I believe, maybe alongside Luke Bruce. However, he deserves to make it. GWS, the body of work, the goals kicked, the assists. In terms of his prime, when he's on, he is as unstoppable as any of these players on this list. And he got that flag at Geelong, so I definitely think he deserves it. Coleman's, top 5 of the Coleman's, constantly, always a threat. And I think purely based off statistically, body of work, goals, that kind of thing, he goes in. And very agile as a player, rate him as a player. We're also talking about, sort of technique-wise, how good are they as a, out-and-out forward. But he could be sort of a dual position player as well. At number 8, gone with a man who hasn't won a flag, gone with Robbie Gray at number 8, class forward for Port Adelaide. He's one of those players that was always underrated, always under the radar, but he was phenomenal. All Australians, big game player, kicking goals after sirens, goals against Carlton, that goal against St Kilda when Paddy Ryder tapped the ball behind him, massive goals. Big game player in the showdown, always carrying in the showdown. As a small forward, arguably the best for the last 10 years, pressure forward, kicking clutch goals, kicking a lot of goals as well. Yeah, and I just think body of work, he definitely deserves to make it. Like I said, he hasn't won a flag or anything, but he has been a phenomenal forward. On the eye test, he was beautiful to watch as well. So that's part of the reason I put him in. Watching him, exciting and a phenomenal player. And a leader as well. A lot of these players are leaders anyway. At At number 7, I've gone with Cyril. Rioli retired in 2018, so you might be thinking, okay, he's only had 5 years in the last decade. Yes, but the fact of the matter is, Cyril Rioli, in his prime, has been the best forward I've ever seen to this day. I don't care what anyone says, the best small forward, the best any forward. When he is on, unstoppable. So strong, burst of speed, his jump is absolutely incredible. Big game player, he's won the Nom Smith, he's won those 4 flags for Hawthorn. Yes, he retired, 5 years ago, so he's only had half the decade, so body of work isn't quite there compared to the other forwards. So if you relate it to that, then he's not going in the list. But there's an exception, and here's the exception. He could have played 3 seasons, but the fact of the matter is, from 2013, probably more so to 2016, 17, he was, in my eyes, to my eye, the best player I've ever seen. Maybe not the best forward I've ever seen, definitely. Gary Ablett has something else to say about that. At 6, we've got his teammate. I've gone with Jared Ruffhead. Now, Ruffhead also won the 3 flags for Hawthorn. So this decade, he's had that success. Big game player, I believe in 2018 or so when he kicked that crazy goal against Sydney to win the game. Bro's just good. Big forward, a leader, obviously captained Hawthorn. What he had to battle through, look, cancer, unfortunately for him, took a lot of his career toward the latter end of this decade away. But from that sort of 2013 to 2017, 18 or something, he was phenomenal. And even after that, yes, he struggled, but body of work, goals, always consistently in the Coleman race, winning awards. He's a leader, very underrated through, Franklin's reign at Hawthorn because he was always second fiddle. But it's a little bit like Karim Benzema and Ronaldo when they were at Real Madrid. It's the same as that in a sense that everyone's watching Franklin, but they don't see what Guy Ruffhead does. And Franklin leaves and Ruffhead carries that forward line. Ronaldo leaves Real Madrid, Benzema carries the forward line. Rate him really highly. Look, unfortunately, health hampered him. If he didn't have those, health issues, who fucking knows where he would be? He'd be higher. Now, at number 5, I've gone with Josh Kennedy. I had him really high originally. However, I've had to bring him down a little bit. I think for me, maybe I underrate him a lot. But we're talking about the best forwards, the best attackers for the last decade, okay? So it's a little bit different. Consistent, good, body of work, amount of goals, goal assists. He's won that flag in 2018. Big game player as well, which I don't think many people give him credit for. For me, ultimately, it's just the body of work. He's always kicking goals. But there's a couple reasons why I have other people ahead of him. And like I said, it's a compliment to put him 5th, okay? But unfortunately, I haven't got him higher. Now, in 4th place, got Tom Hawkins. Now, obviously, this decade, look, he's won more than just the 1 flag, but this decade, he had won that 1 flag for Geelong. For me, when you think of Hawkins, it's not just goals. Yes, he kicks a lot of them. It's goal assists, it's score involvement, bringing teammates into the game. On the eye, he's crazy. He's been aging like fine wine. Like, people would have thought his prime was 2013 to 18. It's actually been the last sort of 4 or 5 years. And for me with Hawkins, it's also prime. When he's on, he's so strong and big body that really no defender can take him. That's why I'm put him at 4th. Obviously a leader. Big game player is a bit of a question mark there. I think originally I had Hawkins below Josh Kennedy, but purely because as a team player, he's a better team player than Kennedy, and I think he brings more success to a team because of his unselfishness. But there are 3 better forwards. Let me know in the comments, who is your top 10 attackers, forwards for the last decade? Not just looking at statistics, who's won the Coleman, pressure forward statistics. Not just that. Look at everything. Body of work, the eye test, their prime, accolades, all of those things. Let me know because I've done a lot of research on this, okay? So I've come prepared, but also bringing in my bias into it. So in the comments, let me know what you think. Now the top 3. At number 3, I've gone with Eddie Betts. In the corner, the pocket at Adelaide Oval, the small forward, the masterclass, the X factor, the crazy goals, goal of the years, mark of the years, big game player. He does it in Victoria, he does it in Adelaide, he does it on the big stage, on any stage. He is Mr. Miraculous. He does things that no one else in the world could ever dream of doing on a football pitch. In terms of influence as well, the influence for Adelaide on that team, making them what they were, the influence having his own corner at Adelaide Oval now, the off-field influence dealing with a lot of the issues with this sort of racism and stuff like that. Look, they may not be related to football as such, but it comes into account in my eyes. Now, body of work, he did retire only, I think, 2 years ago maybe. So body of work has been absolutely phenomenal. Goals, he, nearly winning Coleman's as a small forward is absolutely ridiculous. But I think what gets him a bit high for me is that eye test. Being in his prime, he was just out of this world. A little bit like Cyril Rioli. He just did things on the football field where you thought, how the fuck has he just done that? The left foot torp from outside 50. His best 20 goals are just ridiculous. The 20th of his best 20 goals for the last decade would be any average player's best ever goal in their dreams, if you get what I'm saying. So if you get what I'm cooking, you get what I'm fucking cooking. This guy is crazy good, okay? But there's 2 better for me. He didn't win a flag, unfortunately, which, does bring him down, but he's been the best small forward, most consistent small forward in my eyes for the last decade. Now onto my top 2. In second, I've gone with the man who plays for for this club right here. No longer, however, he's retired. Jack Riewoldt. Now, the reason I've gone with Jack is body of work, consistently Richmond's best forward. Coleman's, plenty of Coleman's. I mean, he did get one in 2012, I believe, so technically only one in this last decade, but he's always been in the Coleman race. He's been Richmond's main forward. He changed from being a selfish player to being selfless, which is why Richmond, well, not just why, but is a big factor to why Richmond won those 3 flags. You know, him changing his game style, body of work, like I keep saying, the goals, goal assists, goal contributions, as well as a leader, as a personality. Even when Lynch came, he was still putting up great numbers. Big game player as well. Massive in the 2017 grand final with some of those tackles. Massive in the 2019 grand final. I believe he kicked 6 goals. He can really do it all. For me, Jack Riewoldt, Hawkins, and Josh Kennedy are all very similar, but I think with Jack Riewoldt is consistency, body of work, the accolades as well. And the other thing that separates him is his high flying. To the eye, he can do crazy things, crazy marks, but I wouldn't be mad if you had Riewoldt, Hawkins, Kennedy in a different order, but you definitely can't have any of them first, because first place for me, the best forward player for the last 10 years, okay? In the last decade, it's obviously Buddy Franklin. Of course it is. Yes, he's only got the 1 flag. You could say he's made a couple more grand final appearances. Does that help his case? We don't need a case. All right, it's clearly Buddy Franklin. I mean, this guy, arguably the best forward of all time, arguably the best player of all time, does it in Hawthorn, does it at Sydney, unstoppable on his day, kicking 13 goals against North Melbourne. Not so good of a marker, but goal of the years. Coleman's, always at the top of the Coleman. Even with all those injury problems in the latter stage of his career, he still has that body of work that's uncomparable to others. On the eye, he's the best forward. When he's on, he's the best forward. In his prime, is the best forward. To be honest, I don't think Jack, Hawkins, Kennedy, Rufford, none of them can lace Franklin's boots, even in his worst season. So Franklin is a clear number 1 for me. However, if you were saying for the last 5 years, it's very different. This whole list will be different. The last 5 years, we're talking the last 10 years, and you have to remember what players did 2013, 14, 15, 16. Not just recency bias, all right? But that is definitely, in my eyes, the best list. Franklin at 1, Jack at 2, Jack Riewoldt, Betts at 3, Tom Hawkins at 4, Josh Kennedy at 5, Jared Rufford at 6, Sil Rioli at 7, Robbie Gray at 8, Jeremy Cameron at 9, Luke Bruce at 10. But that's it. Let me know if you agree in the comments or not. Like I said, make sure you check out the TikTok FTFooty, posting there all the time. Yeah, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Stay tuned. I've got some more best 10 for the last decade. Iraq's defenders, midfielders, coaches, you fucking name it. I've got it coming, so stay tuned for that. That's why you gotta subscribe and hit the bell. I'll see you in another video.